Hello and welcome to today's Rocksmith Developer Stream. It's Casual Thursday here in this home. Today we're going to talk to some people from in the staff. Our community guest today is our very own community manager Brian Turner, aka UbiJurassic, who will be hearing from a little bit later. As for right now, he is in the chat there with you. He'll be taking your questions if you have questions for myself or my chat guest later today, and he'll be running the raffles. All that will happen a little bit later on. You can take your questions on at your leisure. Those will help. If you've never been to Rocksmith Developer Stream, we like to listen to music. We'd like to talk about music. And today, I'm really excited to talk about writing about music. And to do so, I'm happy to introduce our very own Dan Emmerich. Dan, welcome back to the stream. Yeah, well, it's exciting every time. Somehow, we keep it riveting.
There we go. Maybe if I turned my mic on, it would be easier to have a conversation.
Oh, were you not here? I
was muted. The chat let me know that I was muted. I am of course doing all of the broadcasty stuff as well as talking to you today. So hi, thanks.
Yeah. So,
happy to be here. Now that there's not like 1,500 people watching.
Yeah, Dan's doing WWE. Dan is back. Dan is helping run the board right now, and we're going to talk about writing about music because that is something that you have done, and specifically probably a reason that you're here in San Francisco with us. To begin with, I would assume. When did you get started writing about music?
I got started in college. I didn't get serious about writing about music. I started out reviewing records freelance for anybody that would have me. I did it during college. I wrote record reviews for like local papers and the school papers and a local arts weekly called 14850, which was the zip code of Ithaca, New York, where I went to college.
Okay.
And I had taken a class called Writing as a Critic, and it clicked. Like I realized that was one of my core skills, and I didn't know it. I was going to school for audio at the time, so writing about music is a nice adjacent thing. But it just clicked, and it felt right, and I started getting what you call regionally published, which is local papers. Like that's the polite way to say I'm in the school paper. But
you were working for exposure, right?
I mean, I made a little bit of money. It was like $20 or something like that, or $15 for a review in the Ithaca Times. So I was working with external editors, and that was the important thing. Was learning to work with other people. Not just a professor, but having a professional writer-editor relationship and having to submit copy on time, to length, the whole bit. When I got out of college, I did not have a job, and I just started shopping myself around to guitar magazines because that's what I was really passionate about. And I flirted with trying to work for a magazine called Guitar for the Practicing Musician for an entire summer, and they just kept stringing me along, and they were difficult to work with. I still kind of have a grudge against the guy who strung me along. But I did what I guess is unheard of. I don't know. I would send out my resume and some clips of my regionally published stuff, which were record reviews at the time mostly. I hadn't done a lot of interviewing, and then followed up. I literally called up the editor-in-chief of Guitar World. And, that's not what you're supposed to do. But I called him up, and it was Brad Talinsky. He was editor there for like 20 or 25 years. And I just said, hi, my name's Dan Emmerich. I was wondering if you got my mail. He goes, I don't have a lot of time. I'm busy running a magazine. What do you want? I'm like, I sent you some writing samples. I'd like to know if there's any freelance opportunities for record reviews. And he said, yeah, can you come in on Thursday? And then they dug out my stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, you're the guy that like printed your samples on like really pretty paper. I'm like, well, yeah, I thought that's what I was supposed to do, So I came in. Yeah, exactly. I came in. Yeah. We had like a 20-minute conversation in their office in New York. I was living in New Jersey with my parents at the time. So I took the train up one day. I'm all excited. I'm nervous. I wore my blazer. I wore a tie, but I wore sneakers to show that I was cool.
Yeah. Keep that street cred.
That day, the publisher of Guitar World saw me, goes, look at this very New York guy. Look at this guy. Looks like a little little young David Letterman. And so my nickname from that day on, I got the freelance gig. They gave me an assignment and said, can you turn around this Osric Tentacles CD for a review before next week? And I turned it in 2 days early, and the copy was squeaky clean. So that meant I got rehired. But from that day on, I was known as Young Dave. I worked at Guitar World for 3 years after that as a permanent employee. And the day I left, Jerry from the puzzle department, we did crosswords and word searches. He said, well, Dave, I'm really sorry to see you go. I hope you have fun out in California. And I'm like, thanks, Jerry. I was going to break his heart. He was the nicest guy. So yeah, it was pounding the pavement for about 5-6 months after college, just trying to do freelance work for anybody that would have me. I worked for an AOL area called Critics' Choice. They didn't do a lot of music, but I had the freedom to sort of do anything that I could get my hands on as a record review. And then from there, I moved into doing short features or upfront interviews for Guitar World. And I actually wound up going full time on a different magazine that was part of the Guitar World family.
So, what did you have to learn transitioning from doing record reviews to doing interviews and more writing generally about, I suppose, guitars or technique? How did that
I didn't write so much about technique. I didn't even do gear reviews, which I would have loved to do. I was more on the upfront section. Like there's the upfront section of a lot of magazines are little tiny stories, 150-word stories, 200-word stories, small interviews or news pieces or new and notable, here's new gear or something like that. Because I'm a nerd, they actually, this is the early days of the internet. This was, I graduated in 93. I started my career in 93, and I was full-time at Country Guitar magazine. And Guitar World, same office, so I would work for both publications by early 94, late 93, early 94. I think it was October 93 I actually got the gig. But I would also do silly things like the Internet Anagram server was brand new, because this is like the birth of the web, right? Like the web didn't exist.
You're on AOL. You're basically going on AOL.
Yeah, and AOL doesn't even have a web portal yet. You're going onto AOL for everything that AOL offers. One of my assignments was, because I had found the Internet Anagram server, was to take a whole bunch of famous guitarists' names and put them into the Internet Anagram server and see what they showed up, see what they translated to. And I remember Ace Frehley was a cheery flea, so they had the illustrator draw him like a little insect with like Yngwie Malmsteen turned into something like I Am a King or something like that, which we all just got like a huge kick out of. But yeah,
really, of course, yes, you are.
Yeah, I transitioned out of just doing pure record reviews. Because those were the assignments that were given to me. Honestly, it's like, hey, we want to do this story on this band Cry of Love. And the guy's name was Audley Freed. And I had never heard of him, but Cry of Love was on their way up. And so they're coming in, and why don't you go to, go to the club. And, I'm a scared New Jersey boy. I don't know anything about the big bad city in New York City. But I know it's my job to go there with a recorder and a pad of pepper too. Why not salt people?
Seasoning.
Right. Get my seasoning as a journalist, right? So, I show up, and I've got my list of 10 questions. And these 10 questions are completely unrelated. Like, they're just dumb. What kind of strings do you use? Like, really horrible, crappy questions. And I didn't realize what a bad interviewer I was. What I learned, and honestly what Brad helped teach me, was like, after a while, he was like, show me your questions before you go talk to the Gigolo Ants. And the Gigolo Ants had an album called Gentleman. And I had given him, what's your favorite guitar right now? Or what did you use in the studio? Or how do you approach writing a song? And they're very boring, normal questions, uninspiring, doesn't make the person being interviewed want to answer. So Brad said, you got to think about this more creatively. Ask him what his definition of a gentleman is. And I was like, oh, and that unlocked everything. And I was like, yeah, you have to give the person something to catch on to. That album was named Gentleman for a reason. or gentlemen prefer blondes or something like that, or I don't know, had gentlemen in the title. And I realized, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you have to give the person an open-ended question, and you have to intrigue them into wanting to answer it. And that was one of the first things that I learned. I got better at interviews after that. I got to interview Tim Sult from Clutch, and that was one of my favorite interviews because I went in feeling I went to Warner Communications. I went to Warner Brothers because they were on Sire, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And so the interview was at the corporate headquarters. And so we both sit down in this giant, way too big conference room with giant overstuffed chairs where it's clear that like big marketing meetings happen. And I'm sitting there in my t-shirt and jeans, like, you know, with my list of questions. And Tim's sitting there in like an overcoat, just sort of looking like, what am I doing here? And as I interview him, I'm apologizing for the questions that I'm asking because I feel so unqualified to do this. What I didn't know was on the other side of the table, Tim Sult feels unqualified to be interviewed because
Right.
he's telling me, I'm like, so, you know, what were the dues that you paid? You know, how long? He goes, actually, I just joined the band a year ago. I haven't paid any dues at all. I was stacking boxes in UPS. This is a dream come true. I feel like I haven't earned this. And I remember saying to him, like, once, I was like, by the way, I'm really sorry. You know, I'll be completely honest with you. I am new, and this is one of my first assignments. I'm not really used to doing the rock star thing. You're very accommodating, very cool for being a rock star. He goes, there's no rock star here. He just said this. I'm not a rock star. And I'm like, well, he's like, you're not interviewing a rock star. And it was just like a trade-off of, no, you be more humble. So yeah, it was very nice. It was very much a family atmosphere at Guitar World and Country Guitar. I made some huge mistakes there. My first official title was managing editor at Country Guitar, which is not really a content editor position. It's more of a traffic cop. Managing editor is there to make sure that, like, much like a producer would be in games, is this department working well? Do you have what you need? Is everybody talking to each other? But then I was also doing things like editing copy as I went and coming up with headlines. And I was I really still enjoy doing headlines. I don't have as much call for it anymore, but I was really good at doing headlines. Once I misspelled a 5-letter word in a deck, like in the subhead, and it ran at 72-point type in the magazine. The word was fiery.
Yeah.
I spelled it F-I-R-E-Y instead of F-I-E-R-Y.
Yeah.
My boss was apoplectic. Like, he wanted to recall and burn every copy of the magazine, and he was angry at me for a week. He was right.
Was he right to feel that way?
Yes, he was right to feel that way. No, and I felt like an idiot, but there was nothing I could do. This is a national publication. I'm 21, 22 years old. I'm going to make mistakes like that. But again, nobody ever got fired. It was very hard to get fired from that company at that time. It was an extended family, and you could screw up, but as long as like you understood how you screwed up, they were willing to like keep working with you. So learning how to interview was a skill. I later on when I was at GamePro, I had trouble with it as I went, doing an email interview with Stan Lee, and I gave him what I thought were open-ended questions, but because it was email, Stan Lee could just type back one-line things because he didn't want to be bothered with email, you know. In person, Stan Lee was gregarious and, you know, he's everybody's favorite grandpa, just the way that you've seen him in all of his interviews.
Yeah.
But in email, he didn't want to have time. So I was like, if you could change one thing in Spider-Man lore, what would you change? And I figured, like, that's a knockout question, right? Like,
nothing.
All he said was, I'd bring Gwen Stacy back. And that was my interview. Like, he gave me 10 one-line answers, and I was like, that was on me.
Yeah.
I did it wrong as an interview. I should have gotten on the phone and asked for time with Stan Lee. So learning that it was the personal connection during an interview, and then also just giving them questions that they want to answer. I did that with Norman Reedus once. I asked him, instead of asking him about The Walking Dead, I asked him about motorcycles and his art, because he's an artist. And we had a great conversation because it was stuff he wanted to talk about. And it wasn't just like, so is it fun being a zombie killer and stuff? You know, like, so yeah, I learned a lot at Guitar World. I actually had the opportunity to go back to them after I left. I was in New York for something else. I stopped by to say hi, and I made a very heartfelt thank you to all of them for teaching me as much as they did, which you don't always get that opportunity. And I told Kat, I'm like, this is going to be awkward. They're not going to want to be thanked, but I need to let them know that they had a positive impact on my life, and they really taught me how to be a writer in a professional way. It's
I
nice.
think gratitude is important right
I'd
now.
like to
I
think
think
so. Yeah.
gratitude is a skill, I think, that you can develop and learn. In listening, so my next question, Dan, what kind of strings are you using? Just kidding.
Thank you.
Going back,
No
going back
comment.
to when you said you were in college and you did that first review. Was it the first review when you said it clicked, or was it the class that you said made everything click? While you
The class made things click, but then I was encouraged to write things as part of that class and then go get them published. You will
Oh,
appreciate
okay,
this
okay,
because the first review that where I really felt like I could do this for a living was one of the hardest things for me to do. I was reviewing a lot of albums that I had or that friends had, and they were very much in my lane. You know, I grew up listening to classic rock,
yeah.
so I was reviewing like George Thorogood, or I was reviewing, like Eric Clapton or stuff like that. And my professor Barbara Adams said, "You've got to get something that's so far outside of your comfort level, something you've never heard before, and I want you to review that." And do you know what that record was? It was
I believe I do, Dan,
what was it?
because it was Nine Inch Nails Broken
Oh, as a
because I
matter of fact, it
listened.
is. There it is. There it is behind Doug. It's right there. Yes, it was Broken by Nine Inch Nails, and I'd never heard anything like that, and so I struggled to find the words to describe it. And I didn't
Yeah,
know what I was listening to. I had not heard Pretty Hate Machine. I did not know what industrial was. It was just sort of this. It kind of sounds like metal, but with sort of synths in it, I guess. Like I couldn't put my finger on it. I wrote a breakdown of the Broken EP that I was super proud of, and it got published locally, and that was my first published thing, and it made me feel like, okay, the key is to keep an open mind. The key is to challenge yourself and listen to things that you wouldn't normally listen to. You have to go outside of your comfort zone in order to get an honest reaction to things and be able to explain what you feel to other people so that if they're not familiar with it either, they will get some sense of that. There is a famous line that has been attributed to literally like 15 different people. Writing about music is like dancing about architecture. The idea being that it's ludicrous to take one art form and try to use it to explain another art form. You can't
yeah.
really explain what it is to listen to music. Music is too personal and internal to write about. But that's why you hear like it's a very woody tone for this guitar, or a very slippery slide solo, or a very glassy tone. We still use these very vague, emotional, interpretive words to describe music, whether it's from an
And
album review or from gear, because we have nothing better to do. It's ridiculous to write about music.
well, how did you decide? How did you kind of realize that you had something kind of worth saying about music?
Pure
Like
ego.
what gave you that? Okay,
I mean,
that's
honestly, I just assumed. Well, first of all, I was excited to share it. I wanted to talk about it with
yeah.
anybody that would listen. But I think there was a little bit of confidence in that what I have to say is worth hearing. Certainly, you don't get a lot of feedback, but I had gotten feedback
Right.
from my professor who said, "This is actually good." She rode me really hard. Like, she told me later, she was like, "The reason that I came down on you like a ton of bricks the one time that you slipped is because I really believed that you could do this as a living, and I wanted to train you for that." She opened a lot of doors. She called friends, like she called editors that she knew. "I've got this kid. You should try him out, etc., etc."
Yeah.
But so I had the right kind of encouragement without slipping into arrogance that let me know, go ahead. Like, as long as you take this assignment seriously. It's not. I always said, like, writing about video games or writing about music, it's not rocket science, right? You're not going to change the world. But if you take the responsibility for, look, I'm going to tell you yes or no, this is worth your money or not, or this is what it's going to appeal to you, you have to take that responsibility very seriously. And I was willing to do that from the beginning. So
Right.
yeah, I think that you have to just tell yourself you are good enough. The interesting thing, I had been working at Guitar World for a couple of months, and a friend from New Jersey happened to come in, and I literally ran into him on the street, very New York. Uh,
Mhm.
and we got to talking, and he said, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, I thought I had told you I'm working at Guitar World. It's 2 blocks away. I'm going to the deli to get a sandwich." And
Yeah.
he said, "Well, you don't. I mean, you don't actually like. You're not gonna like work there though. Like, you're not good enough to do that." And I was like, "Um, yeah, all signs are pointing to that I can do this for a living. And first of all, what a terrible thing for a friend to say.
Fred, yeah, yeah.
It was one of those like classic movie things where it's like he didn't want me to leave his circle and he didn't want to feel worse about himself because a friend did
Right.
better than he was ever going to do.
So there's also I think certain jobs jobs that are in the spotlight in any capacity
in the
are just assumed
spotlight.
that
Like, I suppose it's in the
it's a
spotlight.
spotlight.
It was a national publication, right? I'm not going to play that
Yeah,
down. Like, I was
right.
very proud to be working for this magazine that I had been reading for 4 or 5 years at that point. I started reading about guitar in high school, and, so, like, that was, oh my God, I'm going to Guitar World. So, yeah, it was absolutely a dream come true to be able to work there and then find out, wow, everybody's really overworked. You can screw up, and they'll forgive, stuff like that. So, yeah, I think there's a certain amount of confidence that you need to anytime you do anything creative. I mean, any of our musician friends that we work with will tell you, you just have to put yourself out there. And that's really what it was. I just put myself out there, and I believed that I was taking it seriously enough that my voice was going to be helpful to somebody.
That's wonderful, and that sounds like a great place to pause the conversation. And we are going to have our first Ernie Ball prize pack of the stream. There's that expression. Great. So if you are in the chat, thank you very much, Dan. If you are in the chat right now and you wish to possibly win one of these Ernie Ball prize packs, now is your chance. If you're in the news, listen to UbiJurassic for instructions on how you can win a copy of everything that you see on your screen right now. We are giving away each pack is going to include a 6-string set of Ernie Ball guitar strings, a 4-string set for your bass, peg winder from Ernie Ball, a black guitar strap from Ernie Ball, some picks, package of owner wipes, and maybe some picks from us here at Rocksmith. And I do want to let you know, we were able to ship out a batch of the prizes so far. Not all of them, but we've got the prizes through part of July. So if you were a winner from the time that we started this at-home stream in mid-March up into part of July, you might want to keep an eye on your mailbox. Hopefully we'll be able to get back in there and send out the next batch relatively soon, much sooner than 6 months, hopefully. Maybe in another month or two, we can get back in there and get some of these prizes out. So yeah, good luck. And if you win today's prize, still a bit of a wait before you might get it, but it won't be an indefinite time years from now. But we appreciate your patience. And if you win, if you win the raffle here, you're gonna get a whisper from UbiJurassic. He's gonna get your name, your shipping address, and your telephone number. We do need all of that information in order to get your prize to you. So good luck. And right now, speaking of UbiJurassic, he is our performer for the week, and I will let him tell you what we're going to hear. And after that, we're going to hail the Shane a bit, and we're back to talk after that.
Hey guys, it's Brian Turner, but you probably know me better as UbiJurassic, your community manager on Rocksmith. I'm back again this week with a pair of new songs as your community guest, and without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and get started. First song is a song that I think every beginner guitarist should know, and that's Hey Ya by Outkast.
One, two, three. My baby don't dance around because she loves me so, and yes, I know for sure. But does she really wanna? But can't stand to see me go down the door. Don't try to fight the feeling, 'cause the thought alone is killing me right now. Thank God for mom and dad for sticking to together, 'cause we don't know how. says, and loose and loose. Shaking baby doll, get on the floor. Get on the floor. Like a you know what to do. You know what to do. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Shake it like a you know what to do.
Amazing performance.
Hey everyone, so that was Hey Ya by Outkast, and like I said, I think it is the perfect song for anybody who is just starting out to learn, because the basic chords that you need to know in this song are going to open up so many other doors for you when it comes to trying to learn other songs in Rocksmith. So those chords are that G, that C chord, that D chord, and then that E chord. And so if you take all four of those chords and you get a capo, you can go down to the 3rd fret here, put that capo, and you can learn one more chord, and that's going to be an A chord. So you're going to take that A shape. Okay. Now take that D shape. Take the bottom half of that G chord, so these bottom 2 fingers here, keep those there. And then that new chord, which is that A, put it all together. You know Free Fallin' by Tom Petty now. Congratulations. Take it one step further. Slip this capo down to the 1st fret. Fix that right there. Learn one more chord, and that's going to be the E minor chord. Put those 2 fingers right there. Pretty simple. Start out right there, incorporate that G chord, that C chord, and then that A chord. Put it all together. Pretty easy stuff. And I know I just said C chord, I think, but this is the D chord. Sorry. So you put that G chord, that D chord, that A chord, and that E minor chord. Put it all together. You know Boulevard of Broken Dreams now. So that's why I think Hey Ya is the perfect place to start out with. It teaches you a perfect basis to start doing some hum and strum sort of songs and rhythm arrangements. So give it a try if you're just starting out.
Oh, hey! Forgot you guys were watching me right now. I'm Shane. I work for Rocksmith. I play guitar, and I'm in a band called Hail the Sun. You might not recognize me, and that's okay, because I used to have really long hair. I used to have more of a beard, but I used to be on this stream, and I'm really glad to be back from my garage. Hey! I wonder if you can see the dog. He's just gonna sit down below, it looks like. Okay, sit in the dirt there in the garage. That's fine, boy. You're a good boy. I'm here today to do a little show and tell about an instrument that I hold really near and dear to my heart. This here is the Volkswagen Garage Master. Now, you might be thinking, did he just say Volkswagen as a maker of a guitar? And yes, I did. If you check out the 12th fret inlay, if you check out the knobs down here, even up here on the headstock, there's a VW logo. This guitar was a promotional advertising move on the part of Volkswagen back in 2006. During that time, as an additional promotion, they actually partnered with First Act Guitars and used people like Slash appeared in advertisements to promote this exact instrument. Not this isn't the one Slash had, but The Garage Master as a guitar was promoted at the time as a guitar that you could take anywhere with you in your new car. There was a cable that came with the guitar that plugged directly into the car itself. It went from 1/4 inch to, it was even smaller than an 1/8 inch. And it plugged into the head unit, and then you could use your car as an amplifier. So then you could take this thing on the road with you, and wherever you were, if you ended up in a traffic jam or something, you could pull off the side of the road, plug in, and just strum away to your heart's content. Now, that alone is enough to really merit why I want to show it off today, because it's pretty hilarious, just that fact alone. But when I take you deeper into what goes on under the hood, you might say, there are some really special features that make this guitar more than just a unique advertising ploy. They really set it apart as a signature guitar, and this set of parameters that they've included has made it, to me at least, it's brought it to the forefront of my guitar arsenal, if you will, to the point where I actually tracked pretty much all of the dirty sounds, the distorted sounds, on the Sufferer record with this guy right here. And you might be thinking, how did you get away with that? It's a Volkswagen guitar. Well, let me show you. So that album was done in drop D. And as you can hear, like this already sounds really good out of the box. This is middle position. I've got both the gain and volume knobs up, and then the tone dial down just a little bit. And you got a pretty sweet tone right out of the box. I'll show you the bridge. Pretty cool. Full neck, sounds like. So that's like out of the box. Those are the tones you get, which is pretty cool. And that would be enough to be like, cool, he could probably use that guitar on record. I did, because of the extra features. Let's dive a little deeper. I'll pull it up this way so I can show you what's going on. So we've got the 3 knobs, pretty typical. And if you've got a 3 pickup selector, it kind of gives you 3 tonal varieties plus a tone knob to really fine tune and specify how bright you want it to be. But then you've got these other switches here, and that's really where the magic is made, because as I'll show you here, this first switch adds a blue light, which already pretty magical, huh? Now you got a light on your guitar, how cool. But apart from that, and here remember we're at middle position, and it just kind of sounds like this. If I put this guy up, I didn't change anything about any other setting. All I did was flip that switch, and it actually activated the active setup that's going on. There's a circuit in this guitar run by this 9-volt battery that you can put in the back. And while I'm here, check that out. That's the VIN number for my cousin's guitar. I don't know if you can see that. But so the active setting adds extra electricity through the components and creates for a higher output from the guitar, which is why you get that little volume boost. And it also adds clarity. A lot of times the extra electricity gives you more brightness, especially apparent on this. If I go back and I do that again. Very good, but very like flat response right here. Throw that active on, and the low voice kind of ducks a little bit, and you get a lot of really bright and beautiful that way. So that's actually how the record was tracked, was just with the active setting turned on, and then this second switch, which you might be able to hear, you might not, but it's a very slight filtering EQ setting that here's one position, here's the other. So I used it with the position up, which to me gave it a flatter response than when the EQ was engaged. and that tends to really accentuate extra in the low mids and the lows. Or I don't know which one does which, actually. I can't really hear from where I'm sitting. So now you take it from right out of the box. You've got 3 pickups to choose from, and then you can decide whether or not you want them to be active or not, and then you can decide whether or not you want to engage the EQ filter, which is really cool. And then the last switch, and I saved it for last because it's definitely arguably the best, arguably the ugliest switch on the instrument, but it's the most unique characteristic that I've ever had in a guitar that I've owned. And that is onboard, and I'll switch to bridge so it really sells it. This is onboard distortion. Bring the volume down to something you can actually deal with. That's cool. This is onboard distortion. I got this guitar. I haven't done anything to it. I didn't have anything to. I did replace the nut. I'm sorry. That's a bone nut now. It might be worth mentioning that I had to replace a tuner. Oops. But apart from that, there's been no. These are the stock pickups, stock neck, stock everything, and it has onboard distortion that doesn't sound terrible. Pretty cool. That's the whole reason I wanted to show it off today, because it's kind of one of those that there's more than meets the eye guitars, and especially because of how it was promoted at the time as this addition to the car you're getting, and this like toy that you could play in your car. But when treated completely by itself, as I've been fortunate to be able to, not being a Volkswagen owner myself, I've been able to really understand what makes this thing so special. And that might have been not your favorite tone right out of the box, but there's just so much that you can dial from there. There's so many tonal capabilities that come right out of the box, and that's what really makes this guitar something I wanted to show off today. The Volkswagen Garage Master. Check online, see if you can pick one up for yourself and have some fun. Have a great rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the stream. It's been really enjoyable today so far, and I look forward to showing off again some other piece of gear that I've got lying around, like maybe this budget solid state amp, which I actually found plenty of good uses for as well.
And welcome back. Maybe. Are we live? We are live again. I am your host, I remain your host and community developer for Rocksmith, Douglas Lilly. Thank you very much to Shane Gann for that pretty rad look at that guitar and a beautiful first segment back on the stream. Right now, we're going to give away 5 copies of the Sabaton song pack on Steam. So if you're live in chat right now, please listen to UbiJurassic for your chance to win one of 5 copies of the Sabaton song pack. That includes 40 to 1, Ghost Division, and Primo Victoria. So now is your chance to get all 3 of the songs simply by pressing !raffle. Coming up, we are going to hear from UbiJurassic on guitar one more time. After that, I'll be back with Dan Amrich live to talk about writing about music. So stay tuned, and we'll be back right after this.
And just like that, we're already at our final song, and there's no real reason why I chose this one other than it just slaps. And that's Evanescence, Bring Me to Life. So, enjoy it.
How can you see into my eyes like open doors, leading you down into my core, where I become so numb? The soul, the spirit sleeping somewhere.
masterful performance.
And we are once again live on the Rocksmith developer stream. I am still your host and community developer and maybe friend, Douglas Lilly. Welcome back. We just heard from UbiJurassic, that is Brian Turner, our community manager based out of North Carolina, and he just played the rhythm path for Evanescence's Bring Me to Life, not Wake Me Up. If you're looking for Wake Me Up, you won't find it that way. Bring Me to Life is the name of that song. So if you're looking for it, look up Bring Me to Life. It happens a lot. It's a very confusing thing. Right now, I would like to welcome back our chat guest for today, Dan Amrick, to talk about music. Dan, welcome back to the stream.
Thank you.
You actually never left.
Nope, I've been here
you've
all
the whole
along
time.
because I'm running all this stuff. Did you see Brian Turner got 99.7% on Evanescence?
Yeah,
That slaps.
It does. Yeah, it slaps. We can say it, right? We're cool enough to say
I'm
things.
I'm not young enough to say that anything slaps.
Cool. It's,
Yeah.
We were talking about writing about music.
Yes.
Why would one want to write about music? What can it do for you?
If you like hearing yourself talk, it's good. You know, like if you really believe that your opinion is more important than everybody else's, it's a great way to do it. I don't really know why. Like, I knew that it was a role that I could fill, and I had spent so many years like diving into learning producers' names, reading the back of albums, reading the credits and noting, oh yeah, that guy he worked with this person and that person. And I just sort of became like a music trivia nerd, and that was a way to get legitimize that, I guess. But just as a consumer, I still regularly check product reviews. Maybe not record reviews anymore. At this point, I know who I like.
You know what you like.
I know who I like. And if a friend says, hey, you should check out this album, Spotify makes it like, wow, okay, then I'll go check that out this afternoon. Whereas back in my day, an album was $8, $10, sometimes.
Sure.
Like when CDs first came out, $17, if you can imagine that. So there was an investment involved, and people were like, well, I like their previous stuff, but am I going to like the current stuff? And so it served a role of, let me help you. No, it's not like, here's what I like. I always saw it much more of, let me help you spend your money better or wisely, so that you're getting something of value. So that's
and when you started writing for guitar magazines, I assume that sort of transferred over that from albums to the potentially much larger investment of a guitar? Or were you doing guitar reviews, or were you writing about gear at all?
I wasn't doing gear. I was interested in gear, and I had, at that point I had probably 3 or 4 guitars already. But I didn't do any of the gear coverage, which made me sad. I always was like, well, you guys could send me an effects pedal. I can review an effects pedal. And there was already like sort of people that took care of that, and they just didn't need any help or want any help. So that was just that. But yeah, I did interviews and feature stories. I did a lot of features. So as managing editor of Country Guitar Magazine, I wound up being able to speak to a lot of really incredibly talented country players from the early 90s. So Jimmy Olander from Diamond Rio, for people that remember that.
Yeah.
I remember it wasn't Pete Anderson, it was the other guitarist for Clint Black. We did a Clint Black issue, and I got to talk to that guy. I got to talk to Junior Brown a little bit. One of the best things was we had a column written by John Jorgensen. Most people don't know him, but he's like one of those players. He was in a country band called the Helicasters and the Desert Rose Band. The Helicasters is like 3 really incredible Telecaster players who are trying to impress each other.
Right.
Yeah, it's like an instrumental trio. It will just melt your face. If you don't believe that country playing is interesting, I beg you to go listen to their version of Orange Blossom Special from the first album. It's amazing. But John was a columnist for us, so I would get on the phone with him and say, please, John, I need your column, because he was always late. And that was part of my job, right? I was the cat herder. Like, okay, well, where's John's column? Was the editor would ask, and I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, here's John's number. Call him and find out where his column is, and give him a deadline and make him turn it in. And I'm like, okay. And John would write really great stuff, but he wasn't really motivated to write great stuff. So I got on the phone with him,
Right.
and I'm like a little nervous. I was nervous basically
Yeah.
talking to everybody at that point. And that phone call turned into a 2-hour conversation about the Beatles and the importance of Django Reinhardt and like all this stuff. And I was like, cool. And I got off the phone, and my boss is like, so when is John's copy coming in? I'm like, hold on, let me call him back.
They had the makings for a great interview.
Yeah, it was great to get to talk to people. I always got the same question back whenever I spoke to a country player because I was in New York City, and it was always the same. What are y'all doing a country music magazine up there in New York City for? I mean, you should come on down here in Nashville. We'll show you a good time. I mean, we got some great barbecue. Come on down. And it's just they were this. The country guys were the sweetest. I can't believe you're doing a feature on Little Old Me. I mean, that is I mean, like every time. And they were just so grateful. Whereas, I was looking at some of our rock coverage, and I had the displeasure before there was a reality show. I had to transcribe a hotel interview with Ozzy Osbourne that a friend of mine on the staff had done. He said, "Yeah, I just got back. I talked to Ozzy for like an hour and a half in his hotel room. I need you to transcribe this." And I didn't know what I was in for because I had never heard Ozzy speak, and neither had anybody. So the whole thing is, it shows the Osbourne is doing it, and and he's slowing everything, and and all through the thing, he just keeps saying, if it wasn't for Sharon, I would be dead. I would not be alive if it wasn't for Sharon. And it took me so long to transcribe that interview because I physically could not understand what he was saying. He's the recorder is about 6 feet away. He's on a couch, and there's a coffee table in this hotel room. And he's not like, close mic'd or anything. He's mumbling, everything. And I had no idea. And then, of course, 3 years later, the TV show, the reality show comes on, and everybody's like, Ozzy is unintelligible. I'm like, yeah, tell me about it. I was on deadline,
I heard of that.
And meanwhile, the guy who did the interview was like, tee-hee-hee, we're going to make Dan do it. He didn't want to do it.
Or it was like, he sends you to transcribe the Ozzy interview while also going to get the replacement elbow grease.
Yeah.
From the hardware store. Got a couple questions. I know you've got a split earlier today. So hit you with a couple of these questions, both from Tone Wolf Theo. And now's your last chance. If anybody has any other questions that they want to ask Dan, hit up UbiJurassic to get those to me. We might have time for one or two more. We'll kind of see where we land. But first, simply, how did you go from reviews to Activision to Ubisoft?
Oh, okay. That's the second. That's like stage 4 of my career. So.
We skip. We'll come back and handle.
There was music journalism, and then I had an opportunity to be at a startup magazine in California about digital culture and the internet and gaming. So I moved from music. I had kind of gotten burnt out, to be completely honest, on music journalism, particularly record reviews at the time. I couldn't find the words to say anything of value to anybody, so I just decided it's time to shift gears, and I had the opportunity for games. So I did that, for like 15 years, and then I jumped ship from editorial to go to Activision because they called me and said, would you like a job? And I said yes. But after 4 years working at Activision as I was supposed to be the Major Nelson. Those of you who know Xbox know Major Nelson. He's sort of like the spokes guy for Microsoft. Very nice guy, really pro at what he does. But when I got hired and he knew what I was being hired in his image, and Activision was going through a major problem with Infinity Ward and the whole split off at the time, I remember he came up to me at E3 that year, and I was with Ryan McCaffrey from OXM, who I used to work with. We were waiting in line for the Microsoft press conference. And he goes, "Hey, Ryan, how are you, buddy? Good to see you." "Hey, Dan, how are you?" As if we were at a funeral. And I said, "You didn't tell me." He goes, I couldn't tell you, but this is the job, So
Right.
I was ready for a change. I was a contractor at Activision. I was there for 4 years. I really didn't get along with LA. I still don't enjoy LA culture or the vibe or the energy that's there. And I wanted to work on the development side. I didn't want to work necessarily on the corporate side. And I had sort of, because I had been a game reviewer, I had friends at Ubisoft in PR and stuff. So 1 year at E3, I said, "Hey, my contract at Activision is going to be up at the end of the year. I'm really interested in this Rocksmith thing. Could you keep me in mind if you need somebody?" And they're like, "Yeah, that'd be cool." And, didn't think anything of it. And then October of that year, I got a note from Paul Cross, who
Right.
said, "Were you serious about that?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm dead. Please, give me, And I wanted to move back to the Bay Area, and I was excited. I had already bought Rocksmith 2011, so I knew what the franchise was and everything. So yeah, that was. It was just because I needed a change, and I wasn't happy in LA, and I had gone through 4 years of sort of the intensity that was representing Call of Duty and Guitar Hero and stuff like that. I was a punching bag for the internet, and I was tired of being that. I wanted to do something more creative.
That's fair. And one last question, and we'll let you go.
We can go a little bit longer. I have a
Well,
4:15
you said you
had
had a meeting.
I did. Yeah, it's at 4:15, but I shut
gotta
this
give away
down and I
after
just
this.
yeah.
Okay. We'll go through this question, then we'll play it by ear.
All right.
So Tomofio asks, if you had the ability to rewrite music history, what would you change?
Well, for one, I would have gone to see Pearl Jam in this tiny club in Ithaca called the Nines, so that I could tell a great story.
Yeah.
I would have told John Lennon to not go out that night. Honestly, that's the very first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, it's just like, John,
Yeah.
Buy Kevlar, something like that. Or, if I could change something, I would love to have seen what the Beatles reunion would have been like if the four of them were still around. I'm a big Beatles fan, and I've spent an awful lot of time listening to and studying and writing about the Beatles. Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably the biggest. I also would have said, somebody please put Jimi Hendrix on his side so that when he throws up,
rolling over.
same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I believe that there are a handful of musicians who, even if they needed time off, like that was the beautiful thing, is that John said, screw all this mess, I need time off, and he took 5 years off, and he was like, all right, I'm recharged and I'm ready to come back, and that's when we lost him. I would love to see what some of our some of the best musicians of all time would have done if they would have been more around.
Yeah, that all checks out. So since you said we have a little bit more time, I wanted to ask, how does writing about music, or even how does reading about music, whether it be interviews with artists, album reviews, what have you, how does that change the way you approach listening to music or writing music?
Well, we talked about this a little bit before, that the thing that really kicked off my confidence in my career as a music journalist was listening to something that was so far outside of my comfort zone that I had to challenge myself with it. And it's very easy because we all know what we like, right? And you want more of what you like.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to get tunnel vision in, I'm only going to listen to this. Reading about stuff, I still read magazines. They're not paper anymore, they're digital, but I read Guitar World, I read Guitarist out of the UK, it's one of my favorites. They do a lot of gear, deep dives on gear. I read Vintage Guitar because I was able to get that on sale, whatever. I'm always seeing names that I go, I don't know who that person is, I don't know who that person is. Actually, I'm several months behind because I no longer have a commute when I would read my magazines.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm several months behind on multiple magazines. And there's always somebody in there that I've never heard of. There's always somebody that, and a lot of times I will take a screenshot on my iPad, and then I will go, yes, that's right. And then I'll go look on Spotify, I'll find their album, and I throw it into a playlist that says stuff to check out. And I don't know if I'm going to like it, but I just remember that I was intrigued by it. So reading interviews, seeing different ways that people approach making music, whether it's music that necessarily appeals to me or not, a lot of times I'll learn just by reading an article with a jazz guy who I wouldn't normally be able to do. And then I can hear those influences that they talk about in other people's music. So yeah, I think that you should always be trying to absorb something new. It is sometimes difficult to force yourself to get out of that comfort zone. I was talking about this with Layla this morning. Layla, one of the other writers that's working on stuff for the website. You may have read her stuff. But Layla and I were talking about, what governs your musical taste? And it's generally your family and friends. The music that your parents plays, you grow up listening to that and you have an awareness of that. And then the music that your peer group, your friends in school or whatever play, or whatever is hot at that given time when you are out doing social music things, that's generally where you get the bulk of your musical taste. And it's very difficult, the older you get especially, to break out of that. If you grew up listening to country, do you appreciate hip-hop? Maybe not, because you simply haven't been exposed to hip-hop. So to force yourself And then even to go, where do I start learning to appreciate hip hop? You know, what should I listen to?
Right.
What's good or what's interesting or what's going on? Having an opportunity to do that, giving yourself the opportunity to do that is reading about stuff. Because I don't expect you to go through Spotify and just go, play me everything that's new this week. You can't do that. You need some sort of friendly guide. I'm hoping that some of the articles that we've been doing for Rocksmith.com over the last couple of months may be those kind of things. Like, hey, here's something about this song that you didn't know, or here's an artist that maybe you didn't appreciate, but we're going to show you a little bit of their gear or tell you a little bit about how they do what they do. And we're kind of, I mean, that is at the core of what I've been trying to do with the website. So, yeah.
Right. Cool. And if somebody is interested in writing about music, how do you develop a vocabulary to discuss music outside of theory?
Don't do it.
Just leaving theory aside. Don't do it. You say
Well,
you're
again,
recommending
writing about music
nobody
is like
start writing.
dancing about architecture. It's
You
very
just don't want the competition.
yes. It's very difficult. I mean, music is an emotional response, right? Everybody has an emotional response to music, so you're trying to write about that ostensibly, how that record made you feel or how that song made you feel. But then you also kind of have to balance in what has that artist done. So you sort of have to be aware of a broad area of music. You won't know it until you start trying to apply it to find out where your blind spots are. Quick anecdote. When I was trying to get my first gig at Guitar for the Practicing Musician, I was on the phone back and forth with this guy, and he said, "Yeah, all right. So you're not the best writer I've ever seen." And I was like, I was not looking to be the best writer you've ever seen. I was just hoping I was good enough to write for you. And I actually said that to him on a phone call. But he's like, I want you to review this new Ozzy live double set. Okay, keep in mind, my mom hates heavy metal, hates rock and roll in general, believes that Ozzy is the Antichrist, and I am penniless, and this guy is asking me to buy a $35 double CD and review it. Now, I knew, because I had worked in college radio, there are promotional copies available, right? That's why they send it to you.
Right.
We want you to cover this. So I said, sure, can you send me the record? And he goes, no, we don't have any here. You should just go out and buy it. And I'm like, so this is on spec. This is a tester. This is not to be published. I'm not even going to get paid for this review to recoup my cost. I had to go to my mom on bended knee. I'm like, Mom, you're not going to believe this. I need to borrow $35 to get an album that you would never allow in the house if it wasn't my job. And I reviewed that feeling very out of place. It was the first live album that Ozzy had done with Zakk Wylde. So Ozzy had done the Randy Rhoads tribute album, which was, like one of the greatest live albums of all time, and every metalhead, everybody has been studying that note for note. And here comes, how does the new guy sound? I couldn't do a compare and contrast. So I just took the album on its own merit. He wanted to compare and contrast, didn't tell me that in the review. Crappy editor, still dislike this guy. But I submitted the album, and he's like, yeah, you didn't address anything about, the tracks that are the same between this and the tribute album, and you didn't talk about Randy. And I'm like, well, first of all, Randy's not on the album. Second of all, if you had asked me as a freelancer, could you do this review? Because every freelance review is you have to opt in. You have to agree. Hey, man, I've got this album. Can you turn this in by Friday for X amount of money? And I would have said no. I said I literally would have said no because I'm not the right guy to review this content. I don't have the expertise yet to tell you how Zakk compares to Randy because I'm coming from a different background. I've been listening to Jethro Tull for 6 years. That doesn't mean that you have to give me a Jethro Tull album. It just means that if I had a choice for what my best foot forward would have been, it wouldn't have been this. And so it turned into a 4-month thing where he finally said, some of the people here said that I've probably been stringing you along and you might feel a little used. So I'm going to just go ahead and say we're not going to be able to use you. I'm like, that's cool. I was actually calling you to tell you that I'm starring at Guitar World next week. Click. He's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. He goes, oh, yeah, Brad and those guys, they're nice guys. He used to write for Guitar World way back in the day, and then he got his own gig. But it was like the least professional thing I've ever seen anybody do, which is just like, you suck, but I'm gonna string you along because I'm bored this summer or something. I don't know why he did it. So There's a lot of times that you're going to be out of your depth as a writer, and it is your responsibility, if you want to cover music, to go and do the research. It's a lot easier now with the internet. The old way was, can I borrow this album? Mom, can I have $35 for Ozzy's live record? Nobody can hear everything, but you should be responsible about filling in the gaps that you have, so that you can try to speak to a larger whole and you never know who's going to be reading your work. The goal is, what could anybody take away from this? That's your responsibility as a writer.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dan. This has been
boring as hell. You don't have to placate me. I know.
We are going to say goodbye to Dan. Thank you very much for being here with me to have this conversation. Dan will continue to run the board through the duration of the stream, which we're just wrapping up right now. But I wanted to say, before I say what I want to say, let's do a giveaway. Let's give away some stuff.
All right.
This is going to be our final Ernie Ball prize pack for the day. So if you are in the chat right now, very well, Dan. If you were in the chat right now, please listen to UbiJurassic for instructions on how you can win everything you see upon your screen. That's 2 sets of strings, one for your 6-string guitar, one for your 4-string bass. You can get a dozen picks from Ernie Ball, a black guitar strap from Ernie Ball, a package of Wonder Wipes, and a peg winder. Did I already say peg winder? I might have. And you're also going to get 1 or 2 picks from us here at the Rocksmith team. All of that can be yours when we are able to send those out. Like I said earlier, we have been able to send out 1 batch of the prizes. Those will be going out here within the next few days. And then the next batch will go out as soon as we are able to get back in the studio and send those out. But it's looking sooner than we were previously anticipating. So hopefully those will go out soon. If you're a winner, UbiJurassic will reach out to you via Whisper. You will get your name, your telephone number, and your shipping address. We do need all that information in order to get your prize to you. We will also ship internationally. So if you're an international viewer, please make sure you split up your address line by line to make it a little bit easier for me to get your prize to you. Good luck on that stream. And again, I want to thank you. I want to say thank you to Dan Amrick for the conversation and for running the board. Thank you to Shane Gann for showing off his Volkswagen Garage Master. Pretty interesting guitar. And UbiJurassic, that's Brian Turner, for playing a couple of fun songs for us. And thank you all for being here and listening. And we will see you next week. Goodbye.